is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano and Andy Kostka live on a Thursday morning. Andy, you were just in the nation's capital to cover a series split, not a sweep. The Orioles avoided the sweep for the 103rd consecutive series, regular season series, I should say, because we all know what happened in the ALDS. But the Orioles, yeah, they squeaked one out last night. We're going to touch on in this show mostly Craig Kimbrel. This is going to be the Craig Kimbrel show because I talked with John Miola a few days ago about the Craig Kimbrel conundrum, and things have just not gotten a whole lot better. But Andy, say what you will about Kimbrel, and we're going to say a lot, but look, this team is resilient. This team still has an incredibly potent offense, and after going dormant in game one, they are able to put up 3 runs in 9 innings and then put up a few more in extra innings last night to get the win over the Nationals.
Yeah, the offensive performance and Albert Suarez, obviously Suarez gave up 2 runs in the 11th, but a little bit unlucky with the double that he gave up. It was a good pitch location, just good hitting. And sometimes that happens. And when you have an automatic runner on, runs, have a tendency to come home. But yeah, the offense kind of bailed out Craig Kimbrel a little bit and made it so that they won the game. He was not charged officially with the blown save, but for all intents and purposes, that's what it was. It came in the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. His first pitch was an inauspicious start, buzzed the head of Joey Meneses, I believe, was the batter at the time, buzzed the tower, and it seemed to go okay after that. It seemed like okay. He got that out of his system, and we're going to, cruise to the finish. And I wasn't rewriting a gamer at the time, which I ended up doing like 5 times. But he gets the first 2 outs, and the next thing you know, Eddie Rosario hits a home run. And after the home run, just the fastball command is gone, completely gone. And he's pitching at a slower velocity. More than 1 mile per hour slower than last year. He's not using his knuckle curve. At the beginning of the season, if you recall, what made Craig Kimbrel great was that the spin rate on his knuckle curve made up for the fact that his fastball velocity was down. And you could kind of rely a little bit on the knuckle curve and say, totally fine. We're going to, obviously use the fastball as a setup pitch, but the knuckle curve is what we're going to get guys on. And he hasn't used it nearly as frequently as he has in years past. So I wonder if just the feel on that pitch is not where it was at the beginning of the season. Needless to say, though, this is a worrisome stretch. It's not just one game. It's now multiple. He has not been able to finish the 9th inning in 4 of his last 5 appearances. Last night was the 4th of in that stretch of 5. As you mentioned before the show, though, like really it's the last 6 appearances we should look at, because against the Angels in Anaheim, he loaded the bases. That was not a smooth save either. And so this is definitely a concern. When we asked about it post game last night, Brandon Hyde, as he should have said, is the correct answer for giving confidence for a guy, saying that we're going to stick with it, that we need to get him right is what Brandon Hyde said. So if they're going to stick with him and need to get him right, really what I see is fastball command needs to improve immensely. And his feel, if he doesn't have the feel on his knuckle curve, he needs to figure that one out real quick. Because really it's that 2-pitch mix. And he has a third, but really it's those 2 pitches that are such plus pitches and over his career have proven to be incredibly nasty. That's where we are.
He's got to figure it out. And like you said, Brandon Hyde has to say that. And you could make a case that he's right, that the Orioles do have to get him right. because they invested $13 million in him to be the Orioles closer for just this 1 year. And of course, he has the team option for next year if everything goes right. But assuming they're going to get Felix Bautista back, this is going to be a 1 year run for Craig Kimbrel in an Orioles uniform. And the issues right now run pretty deep. And let's go back to that game against the Angels and run through all of his appearances since then, because it really started with that appearance where he loads the bases. At the time, his ERA was under 1. So he was phenomenal through the first 3-4 weeks of the season. Loads the bases, gets out of it on April 24th against the Angels. 2 days later against Oakland, gets 1 out, walks 3, and blows the save. Gets lifted for Keegan Aiken with 1 out in the 9th. 2 days after that, against the A's, allows a base runner, gets checked out by trainers, stays in the ball game, and then allows a go-ahead 2-run homer and gets lifted for Dylan Tate without recording an out. So then there's back issues that creep up. There's back tightness. He does not go on the IL. He does not appear in games for several days. Finally, they use him again on May 3rd in Cincinnati, and he looks great. He strikes out the side. You're thinking, all right, this was just a back issue. He's going to be fine. He just needed to get through that. The next day, comes in with a 2-run lead, allows a run, and is lifted with 1 out for Yennier Cano with the winning run on base, and Cano finishes things out. And then we get to last night in Washington. Comes in with another 2-run lead, so he's gotten a little bit of extra cushion. Allows a run, allows the winning run on base, and gets pulled for Keegan Aiken, who allows the tying run to score. And like we've said, Andy, he may not get charged with the blown save in each one of these situations, but the eyes will tell us he is not pitching well right now. The body language is also bad. It's hard to parse out exactly what's going on with him if he's feeling pain and he's trying to pitch through it. You have to trust a guy. Brandon Hyde and Brian Ebel have to trust that Craig Kimbrel is good enough to pitch. If he's saying he's good enough to pitch, then he has to get the benefit of the doubt as a 35-year-old veteran. If he's feeling pain and he's trying to pitch through it, don't try to be the hero. But if he's okay and he's just going out there and getting hit as hard as he is, that's an even bigger issue because he does not look right at all. His fastball velocity is down by 1.8 miles per hour from last year to this year. His curveball is also down in terms of miles per hour. That knuckle curve, 1.5 miles per hour slower this year as opposed to last year. So many issues are creeping up for him. And you see the way that he is walking around the mound and slapping the mound last night at one point. He gets the first 2 outs of that 9th inning, like you said, in Washington, allows the home run, and it all falls apart. What is going on right now with Craig Kimbrel?
It was tough to watch. Watching him leave the mound, seeing him in the dugout, he looked, visibly upset, and it's tough to see. I don't know, we know what is going on in terms of on the field, but yeah, we don't necessarily know what's going on off the field, and because there was a public, announcement that hey, he was having some back tightness and discomfort. This could be a case where, the Orioles have an opportunity to cite that again and put him on the injured list. Give him 15 days. Let him figure it out. I mean, that is an option. And I wouldn't be shocked if that is the option that Baltimore ends up going for. Because as you said, I mean, this is a guy that you paid $13 million for. You don't, you don't move on from that. And you shouldn't, because we've also seen at the beginning of the season how good he can be when he's on. But this is kind of been the Craig Kimbrel experience of the past couple of seasons. It is what Philadelphia Phillies fans pointed out when he came to Baltimore, was that prepare for a volatile reliever in that he can be really good and he can get in these ruts, which right now he is in a rut. Ask Jacob Webb just about the overall, confidence of the bullpen around Craig Kimbrel. And of course, I mean, it's a question that there's only one answer for it publicly. even if it's not true. But publicly, Jacob Webb correctly said, that, hey, Kimbrel is a Hall of Famer in his book, and believe they see how he goes about his business, and they have nothing but confidence for Craig Kimbrel.
Right.
But
You have to say all that stuff.
you have
Yeah.
to say that. But at the same time, a track record of success in the major leagues at a certain point can't be what you hold on to and hope that you turn back the clock.
Right.
At a certain point, you have to recognize that father time, or just an injury, whichever it is, or purely, I mean, some guys just lose lose the feel on a certain pitch, which might be going on with an up curve. These things
Right.
happen, but it would be irresponsible to not look for a solution of some kind, be it
Yeah.
pitching in non high leverage situations for a couple of days just to get the feel back, to put them on the injured list, backdate it 3 days because they can do it up to 3 days. So you have them in 12 days ready. Those are probably the outcomes that you would want to do, because it is, I mean, everyone knew what a luxury it was to have Felix Bautista.
I hope they did. It maybe we took it for granted last year because
I
he's
do, I do,
phenomenal.
yeah, I do think that the way he was able to do 6-out saves and just strand base runners in extra innings, with the automatic runner on second. Felix Bautista is a special pitcher, and those kind of guys don't come around very frequently. This was a understandable. You needed to get a closer situation, and a 1-year deal was what they were. Obviously the team option, but for all intents and purposes, one year was what they were comfortable with doing. Made sense. There needs to be some sort of cool down period, because even if you're a 35-year-old veteran, this is a tough stretch to go through, and then it can do a lot for a guy's confidence and rattling that confidence. So I would probably be on the side of give him some lower leverage situations. Again, then the question becomes who's pitching the ninth inning. I have some ideas about that, but
we'll get into that. Yeah,
we'll get into that. But I think it'd be really difficult, and could just crush a guy's confidence who has known nothing but success in the major leagues. Well, he's known other things besides success. You don't become a closer without experiencing blown saves.
sure.
Like that's part of it. You have to learn how to flush yesterday's disappointment for tonight's triumph. That's the essence of being a closer. But at the same time, this is a tough, I'll say 5-game, because he still got the save, in Anaheim, even though he loaded the bases. Sure. Tough 5-game stretch. One of them great, but the other 4 have really been difficult for him. And he looked visibly upset last night.
Yeah,
that was tough.
It is, and it's a guy who, from his second season onward, from the time he was a 23-year-old in Atlanta, has been a closer. Most closers, a lot of closers and relievers in baseball are failed starters. Craig Kimbrel was never that way. He was a closer from 23 onward, and that's how he's been able to rack up as many saves as he has. And John Mioli said on the podcast a couple days ago that you signed Craig Kimbrel for the aggregate because he is still going to save the vast majority of games. Last year, he blew just 8 saves, had 23 saves for the Phillies. Of course, had a couple blown saves in the playoffs, but you were hoping that you would get at least a good regular season from Craig Kimbrel at this point. Talk about his age. He turns 36 in 3 weeks. Father Time is undefeated, and he comes for us all. And at some point, the Orioles had to know what they were getting in Craig Kimbrel, but also had to understand the possibility that he may not be as good as he has been in recent seasons. Even 2 years ago, he had 22 saves for the Dodgers and just 5 blown saves. Now he's got 3 blown saves in 11 chances so far this season. And yeah, he has struggled in the playoffs in the last couple seasons, but you were at least hoping to get through the regular season with this guy. And right now, he just does not look the same. And whether it's a physical thing, which we think that there might be something there, a mental thing, the Orioles have to figure out exactly what is going on here and come up with some kind of solution for him at some point, because this is a guy's track record. You said it, Andy, can only get you so far. It is, what have you done for me lately? And when the Orioles made the decision to send Jackson Holliday down, a guy who's 15 years younger than Craig Kimbrel, they came to the conclusion that he was no longer benefiting from facing big league pitching, and they made the decision immediately. At some point, Mike Elias and Brandon Hyde have to make that decision on Craig Kimbrel. At what point are they saying he is mentally not or physically not good enough to be coming in the ninth inning right now? Because he's always been a closer at some point in his career. He's always come in the ninth inning, and you can't just shift him away from that ninth inning and give him setup opportunities, eighth inning opportunities. That's not who he is. He's always been a closer, and you don't have a guy that can naturally come in the ninth inning right now, other than Craig Kimbrel.
Yeah, I will say though, this is a team sport, and while Craig Kimbrel, has been a closer his entire life, basically, at this point,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's tough to keep trotting a guy out there no matter what in that position just because it's what he's done his entire life, and I realize that, part of signing him, that he's signed here to be the closer. He expects to get those opportunities, and he wants to climb up the all-time save list. Right now, he's fifth with Kenley Jansen.
Right.
Uh, but this is a team that is in a win now situation, and they need to make tough decisions. That might mean moving Kimbrel for the short term out of that ninth inning role. It's not going to be an easy discussion. But at the end of the day, you have to. There's 25 other guys on the active roster, and this is a team that is trying to win the AL East, which is going to be a tight run game with the Yankees most likely as the other front runner. They're trying to go deeper into the postseason, and you'd imagine that at the trade deadline, the number one priority will be to get a high leverage reliever. But you have to kind of put the team over the individual at a certain point, and they did it with Jackson Holliday. They realized that this is, and also they did it for Jackson Holliday's individual in the fact that they thought it would be kind of adverse for his development at a certain point, struggling in the majors. But they did it for the team as well. They had Jorge Mateo available and ready to play a lot of second base, and Mateo has done very well to begin the season. So from a team standpoint, it wasn't like that was a team-based decision where they decided that moving Jackson Holliday down was the best thing for them. Obviously, it's so much easier with Jackson Holliday because he has an option. He doesn't have it's completely different animal with Craig.
Yes.
You're not sending Craig Kimbrel at AAA. That's just not. Right. It's not going to happen
unless he is on a rehab assignment.
Unless he's on a rehab assignment, you literally can't do it. Craig would have to agree to such a move, and he probably wouldn't. Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is it's a team. This is a team that's trying to win as many games as possible. It doesn't matter if the calendar is May. You stack wins now because these wins are absolutely vital if you're going to win it. Win a pennant at the end of the season. At a certain point, you have to make these tough calls, and it might be time to say to Craig, hey, just a couple games, have you come in the seventh, in the eighth. And I'm sure Craig is a guy that he wouldn't be obviously elite stuff, but you wouldn't be perpetually in major league clubhouses if you were a egotistical jerk who didn't understand the team side of things. Like he understands the team. He understands this. This is a guy that is a good clubhouse presence as well. So he's most likely it's not going to be a fun conversation, but he probably would understand, hey, just a couple games, get my stuff right. That's the most likely way this has to go. Otherwise, you're going to let him pitch through it. And at this point, I mean, right now in the last 5 games, batters are hitting 500 off of him. He's thrown 90 pitches in 2 1/3 innings, 7 walks. Just pretty wild overall. And this is a difficult stretch that you worry more about what this does to the team. And they didn't lose last night. But you do worry about what it does for the team if you're throwing away leads in the 9th inning, and what it does for a guy's confidence down the road.
If you want to find a silver lining from all of this, maybe you could say, at least he's having these problems now. At least this isn't an issue that's cropping up in September after he's put together a good 5-month stretch. And then you're in September after the trade deadline in need of a closer. I said a few days ago, what really hurt the Orioles last year was Felix Bautista going down after the trade deadline, because it didn't allow them to go out and get a short-term replacement for Felix Bautista. At this point, the Orioles, yes, you do need to win these games. These games are just as important now as they will be in September. But you have some runway now where you have a couple months until the trade deadline to figure out what your needs are. And if Craig Kimbrel being an issue is cropping up now, that's something to keep an eye on, as you still have a few months to decide whether you need to add to that bullpen and exactly what kind of piece you want to add to that bullpen. But that doesn't change the fact that it is an issue right now, and you have a short-term need at a time when a lot of guys aren't getting traded. Luis Ariz got traded, sure, but a lot of teams aren't going to be trading their closers, trading their high leverage relievers at the beginning of May. Let's say you do, though, find a spot that is not the 9th inning for Craig Kimbrel. Let's say maybe he has to head to the IL. Let's say the Orioles sit him down for a few days, give him some time, or they try to move him out of that 9th inning. Who pitches the 9th? Are you okay with a closer by committee system like the Orioles have done when Kimbrel was experiences his back tightness? We saw Danny Coulomb come in for a game, Jacob Webb. We've seen Dylan Tate come in relief of Craig Kimbrel, Keegan Aiken last night. Yennier Cano has also filled that role. Is there one guy you think that the Orioles should they try to go back to the Yennier Cano at closer experiment, or are you okay with a closer by committee if Craig Kimbrel can't be used in the 9th inning?
I'm totally fine with a closer by committee outlook based on matchups and my dog is whining over here. She wants attention.
She doesn't know what the answer is either.
She doesn't know the answer. Yeah, she's like, what the heck? Why are we talking about Craig Kimbrel when we can talk about me?
Oh, hi.
Yeah. But at needless to say, I think it's a situation where, maybe Albert Suarez is, I mean, as crazy as that is to say, in February, maybe Albert Suarez is kind of a fill-in closer. Maybe when Tyler Wells comes back, and we don't really know his outlook because he's in Sarasota resting and rehabbing his elbow, which they don't think is a long-term major consideration, but just kind of a rest situation right now. So we don't know the timeline on Tyler Wells, but we do know, for a fact that he looked great late in games at the end of last season when he came back from some arm fatigue. Those are the two names that pop. I would maybe stay away from Yennier Cano as the official closer, just because he has, as many people do, kind of struggled under that role a little bit. He's a phenomenal 8th-inning guy, or a guy that you bring in the 6th-inning if you need a ground ball. I think you continue to play matchup base, and as much as fans like to nitpick over Brandon Hyde's bullpen decisions, I think he's done a great job managing with matchups in the bullpen overall. Taking the entire palette of colors. He's done a great job. So yeah, closer by committee probably would be the way to do it.
You know who I'm thinking would be great in this spot?
Who?
DL Hall.
Actually, this is a really interesting point. And I'm glad you brought that up. The interesting thing is, they traded DL Hall away, and he would have been in this bullpen.
Yeah.
If probably not the rotation, he would have been in the bullpen.
Yeah.
The O's didn't replace him.
No, they didn't go out and get a lefty.
You didn't go and get a lefty. Instead, you trusted that it was Keegan, CNL, and Danny Coulomb would be the good enough. We've seen that they overall have been good enough, but it's interesting that they didn't add another bullpen arm. I really would have expected it, and maybe they felt that they did enough because they had a depth in their farm system with Albert Suarez and players of that ilk that you could kind of call on if you need it. So they maybe didn't need it, but yeah, DL Hall was always an exciting guy to see at the end of a game. The thing with DL Hall though, you never really knew what was going to happen.
Right. Which is similar to Craig Kimbrel though.
Craig Kimbrel experience. I mean, it was the same thing, So,
yeah. And you never know how a guy is going to react to being in that spot. We saw DL Hall record one save at Yankee Stadium 2 years ago, but other than that, he just fits the role of a closer in terms of he has the high velocity. He seems to have that kind of tough mentality. Obviously, I'm not saying the Orioles made the wrong decision in trading for Ace Corbin Burns. You do that deal 10 times out of 10 if it takes DL Hall and Joey Ortiz. Obviously, that was the right decision. However, I'm just saying somebody of that ilk might have been beneficial here. And maybe, like you said, Tyler Wells, if he gets healthy, you saw at the end of last year him being used as a reliever very effectively down the stretch. So once this rotation is fully healthy and we get Grayson Rodriguez back in that rotation, and once Tyler Wells gets back and he no longer has a spot in that rotation, maybe that's a role that he takes on. And the Orioles obviously thought when they traded away DL Hall, they thought we're good enough with what we have now. And if we need more, we will go and get a guy at the trade deadline. But right now,
that was probably the correct assumption. Yeah, I don't mean to play Monday morning quarterback.
No, and
they should have. But I think they do have the sum of their parts is really good. They have depth, and the fact that they have, once you get guys back healthy in this rotation, like these are two rotation arms that you have unavailable right now. In Tyler Wells and Grayson Rodriguez. Once you have them back, there is a natural shift of guys going to the bullpen. We saw Albert Suarez go from rotation to bullpen, and he's been really, he's been an interesting piece out of the bullpen. Gave up 2 runs last night, but tricky situation with a guy automatically on second base. I wouldn't be shocked if, I mean, right now there's no way Cole Irvin is coming out of the rotation with the way he's pitching. So maybe Tyler Wells is unfortunately for him, the kind of that odd man out that is going to be in the bullpen. And this is how bullpens work. They often work themselves out. You can never have too many starting pitchers because you can likely bump a guy into the bullpen. And we've seen Tyler Wells has great stuff that he can pitch out of the bullpen and really dominate a game in a short spurt kind of outing.
Yeah, and not to totally relitigate the Craig Kimbrel signing, but there were some guys out there who might have made sense for the Orioles on shorter term deals. I mean, we talked about Hector Neris as a potential guy who had an Astros connection, who had been a closer at times in the past. So far for the Cubs, he signed a 1-year deal with them, and he's got 6 saves and 7 opportunities, but a 3.21 ERA. He hasn't been lights out, but he's been solid. Ronaldo Lopez has maybe been the best reliever that was signed all offseason by the Braves. He signed a 3-year deal, but not to be a closer. He's been phenomenal for the Braves, but he's not used in that role. Kimbrel made sense. He made a lot of sense given the Orioles' need for just a 1-year stopgap closer. And given his history in the 9th inning, I understood it, but the Orioles knew what they were getting, and they had to understand the risk that they were getting, which was if he doesn't work out, that's a 36-year-old who has only been a closer who might have to be for the first time in his career, bumped out of the ninth inning. And now they are facing a situation where that might be the best possible outcome. They have an off day today. They come back home Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Are you expecting, Andy, that if the Orioles, assuming they don't make a roster move with Craig Kimbrel in the next day or so, if they are in a close game on Friday night with Ruben Splash out in left field, are they going to be calling on Craig Kimbrel with a 1 or 2 run lead in the ninth inning?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So fans just have to buckle up for the time.
I see it until the O's do something else. They signed him to be a closer. They know he can do it. The last 5 games, have been a struggle, but they also firmly believe in what Craig Kimbrel can do. Signed it for a reason, and buckle up and see what happens. And I wouldn't be shocked if Craig Kimbrel has been in these situations before in his career. You're not a closer of 425 saves without having a stretch that is poor.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. Just got to work it. Whatever that song is. That's basically, that should be his walkout song now.
He doesn't have the pomp and circumstance that Felix does. Maybe should have given extra bonus points to Felix for having the Omar whistle and the light show.
Yeah. But I do think, he knows what it's like to kind of have your back against the wall, so to speak. And in a week time, we could be looking at three more saves under his belt, approaching number 4 all time.
Right. That is how closers work as well. Sometimes they look phenomenal and sometimes they look terrible. There was that stretch last year, as good as Felix Bautista was. Remember, he blew that save at home where he gives up the grand slam, and all it takes is 2 or 3 outings for fans to start clamoring for a change at closer. But this has been an extended stretch, as we've said, for Craig Kimbrel, and the Orioles and Kimbrel have to figure it out. Andy, thanks so much for taking the time on an off day. Please give your dog some more pets for me and some more attention, because clearly she's clamoring for it. At AF Kostka is his Twitter handle. I'm at Paul Mancano. Andy has a great article up on the BaltimoreBanner.com where you can subscribe just $1 for 6 months about Colton Cowser's work with his childhood hitting coach as well. Good story. Fascinating look back at how Colton Cowser became who he is and how he has gone back to his roots to find success in his breakout rookie season. We will have complete coverage throughout the weekend. Andy and Danielle Allentuck and Kyle Goon and myself will all be at the ballpark on Friday, so tune in for that. In the meantime, give us a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe. Share the show with your friends. If you write us a good review on the Banner Baseball Show, I will read it out here on the Banner Baseball Show. I'm making that promise to you.
Have you ever read one out loud?
I have on our Banner Ravens podcast. I have, which you can also subscribe to. I have read out some reviews, and they've been mostly positive. They include some jabs about our team building philosophies, but other than that, I'll read it out. I'm making that promise to the listeners.
Did you read out the one from a guy recently that said you talk too much?
I should read that out. I love reading out the comments as they go. One of the comments that Mancano has to let Kostka talk. And I think most people who would listen to me speak would agree with that as well.
Nobody needs more rambling. Nobody needs more rambling. We'll end the show with that. We'll end it.
That's perfect. Thanks so much for tuning in.